Hey, what's up guys? So if you only follow me here on YouTube, then you're probably only aware of my Tarkov content or my other video game content, or maybe my live stream tech video guides that I did like over a year ago, and stuff like that. But if you follow me on Twitch, or if you're a member of my Discord community and you've become friends with me, you probably know that I'm actually a huge D&D nerd. I've been playing these games my entire life. I've been role-playing since before I knew what role-playing was. I remember when I was a kid just playing with action figures, but me and my best friend both wanted to be writers our whole lives, so we made really elaborate stories to go with this stuff. And then as time went on and we outgrew the action figures, we made these elaborate board games. Had no idea what D&D was, had no idea what like Warhammer was, but we were making war games with no story at first, and then as they got like more elaborate, we started adding these little story cards that just kind of had a little bit of flavor in them, and it just kind of gave us a reason for why we were doing such and such mission. And that eventually evolved into just like full-on role-playing without ever having heard what it was. It was really awesome. I have a lot of great memories from growing up with my best friend playing these games that we created ourselves. And then I learned about like AOL chat rooms. Let me know in the comments if you remember AOL vampire role-playing. It was this group called Raiden, or the game system was called Raiden or something like that. I have very strong memories from when I was like 15 or 16 playing in this for like a year. And then I did like Star Wars AOL chat room based role-playing games back then. I did role-playing on Star Wars Galaxies when it came out. I've done a lot of video game role-playing actually. I've done Star Wars, Neverwinter Nights, the text-based version way back when. More recently, I've done DayZ role-playing over voice chat, GTA, Arma, all those video games and stuff. So I've got some experience with like voice acting, but not in like a silly voice kind of way, and like trying to actually like inhabit a real person kind of way. I've always taken it very seriously, interesting enough, which might sound weird to you, because I think a lot of people, when they think about Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, they think of just like popcorn adventure fiction that you don't really take that seriously. But that was never really the case with me. I've always tried to elevate it a little bit, not to sound pretentious, but to make it art, if that makes sense. When I was running my games, I took it as seriously as a director might take making their movie, or as an author might take writing a novel. I took it that seriously. I was really, really into it. Any ideas that I was thinking about, I put it into the role-playing game, and I explored it with my players. It was really interesting, and I haven't done it in about 2 years now. It's the longest stretch I've ever taken off from role-playing. Although I have done some video game role-playing, but it's been I haven't done tabletop role-playing in about 2 years, mostly because I've been putting so much focus on streaming. And the way that I run role-playing games, they're very involved. They take a lot of work. I mean, I was putting in like 40 hours a week a lot of the time to run a one-day 8 to 12-hour session. We got into it. I mean, we got really into it. I think after my last campaign, which ran about 6 years, it was the longest one I've ever done in my life, I kind of got not burned out, but it was like I had said everything that I needed to say in role-playing. I had accomplished everything that I'd ever wanted to accomplish as a DM. Tears were shed between my players and me. We got into it. It was, to us, it was the perfect story. It was very heartfelt. It was amazing. I loved it. And I just didn't feel like I needed to say anything else. But that was 2 years ago, and now I got that itch. I need to scratch that itch again. And I don't have time to run a game right now, but I am finding myself thinking about it a lot. And there's a lot of knowledge that I've acquired over the years of playing and running these games, that I've talked to some people on my Discord server who are running games of their own, or they're playing in games of their own. They've got all of these questions, and I have a lot of experience in it. And so I think mostly because of this YouTube channel and the ways that I've been doing like very deep dive advice guides on this YouTube channel, I kind of want to try to do a little bit of that with role-playing and Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot. So I'm still going to be doing the other video game content too. I'm going to be, I mean, this is my channel. I'm going to be talking about whatever I want to talk about, right? But for the foreseeable future, I kind of want to start talking about role-playing a little bit. And so what you can expect from this channel, if you are subscribed here and you're part of the community, is I'm going to be giving you guys all kinds of DMing advice. That's probably where most of my experience lies. I've been doing that for 15 years. I've run games for all types of players. I have run games for difficult players that have completely fallen apart, and I've learned from that. I've also shown players who I've butted heads with kind of what makes role-playing fun to me, even if it's the polar opposite of what they thought was fun, and kind of brought them along onto my side, and they grew an appreciation for that. And so maybe if you're finding that you are a part of a group where you're butting heads with your players, maybe it's not just that you're completely incompatible and you can't play together. I think there are things that I can teach you that will help you make a cohesive group, even if you're butting heads. There's a lot that I know about storytelling, about how to run a long-lasting campaign. I've got all kinds of advice on how to make your NPCs feel like real people and not just like video game avatars that exist solely for, you know, the pleasure of your players. Some people love games like that. Some people love games where the world doesn't really feel like it's real. Everything is just completely tailored to your players. But I never really liked that. I've always been drawn to games where the world itself feels very fleshed out, very real. It feels like whether your players are there or not, they're gonna go on with their lives. I like that. It just feels more lived in. It's a little more immersive for the players. I really dig running games like that, and I really dig playing in games like that too. So I have lots of advice for that because I've kind of made all of the mistakes and I've learned from a lot of them, I hope. I've got advice for players, both in terms of like if you have a DM who maybe needs a little bit of help, or if you're a brand new player to D&D and you don't know exactly how to role play, or maybe you're doing GTA RP or something and you have a hard time with maybe not voice acting, but figuring out how to inhabit a character that's different from you. Got a lot to talk about in terms of that. Metagaming is a huge problem. It's probably the #1 thing that destroys games, in my opinion, especially when we're talking about online role playing. If you're playing live face to face, that's probably not the most destructive thing, because usually you could just talk to people face to face about it, and it's a lot easier to kind of like reconcile. But when you're playing online in video games with perfect strangers that maybe you don't communicate with outside of the game, it can be tough. So I've got advice there. I have a ton of advice for running games over virtual tabletops like MapTool, Roll20. There's a couple of new ones that are out that I might want to take a look at some point. That's where 90% of my experience has been, especially over the last like 15 years. I've run some very elaborate games on virtual tabletops. And that's probably my medium of choice, frankly. Although I do kind of like them all, but I think you can get very, very immersive in a way that you can't with a video game, because I feel like the video game does so much of the work for you. It's harder for your imagination to take over. But when all you have is just like, it might be a beautiful map, but just like a 2D map with 2D tokens, there's so much more that goes on in the imagination that I adore. I have advice for rule sets. If you want to modify rule sets, I am the master of making homebrew games these days. I've done it a lot. I've made games more complicated if I didn't feel like they were realistic enough, or if I didn't feel like they were doing what I wanted them to do. I've done a lot of work on stripping down role-playing systems so that they only do the bare minimum that I need them to do for the players to have fun and get into the storyline, and which I tend to find works really well if your group is like very role-play focused and not so much worried about like battle gaming and stuff. But I like both, and so I got a lot of I have a lot of advice for both. I have a lot of advice for storytelling. One of the things that I'm most proud of with my previous 6-year-long campaign is how I weaved in details. I just peppered in, I planted all these seeds early on that came to fruition, sometimes not for years later, and I'm talking IRL years later down the road. That when the players finally saw, you know, the thing that happens, and they could trace it in their memories all the way back to maybe sometimes even the first day of the campaign, and it didn't like really pop up until 2 years in, it just blew their minds. There's a lot of things that I do that I can share with you guys that will make that kind of stuff a lot easier for you. And then also, you know, how to make characters, how to build a world. I've done a lot of world building, both in my own homebrewed original worlds, but also, you know, I've fleshed out different areas in other worlds, you know, worlds based on books or say Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever. Other things I plan to do with this channel, I kind of want to interview other DMs. I want to interview past players from my games. I have a great role-playing group that I still keep in touch with, even though we haven't played with each other in a couple of years. I think we can learn a lot from talks with them. I might even do campaign retrospectives, you know, like kind of delve into, especially that 6-year campaign that I ran. There's so much interesting stuff that happened, a lot of which I think there are a lot of teachable moments from that game. Both good and bad, but also it was just a very fun adventure, and I think maybe some of you would get a kick out of that. And maybe down the line, you know, I don't know. For now, I just kind of want to dip a toe in and just talk about this stuff until either I get sick of it or I get so into it that I decide to like really put a lot of focus in on it. But maybe some point down the road, I will actually start running campaigns again. I could see it being a lot of fun if I live streamed a game over on Twitch or maybe here on YouTube. I think a lot of you would get a kick out of that. I've even got ideas for how I might involve the community in it. But right now, it's just that'd be so much work. I don't have that kind of time right now. But maybe someday, especially if you guys are into it, I could maybe see myself running a game again. So yeah, I have an endless amount of stuff that I want to talk about in this subject. So I hope you guys like it. If you think you will, make sure you subscribe, because I do think I'm going to post a lot here. If you're looking for people to team up with, just like I did with Tarkov, I've got over 1,000 Tarkov players on my Discord server right now. If you guys are looking to find people to game with, to role play with, come join my Discord server. I bet we can build a really nice sized community over there, so that if you ever just want to run a one-shot game, or if you're looking for long-term players or whatever, I bet you'll be able to find them, maybe not immediately after this video, but as we build the community, I bet we can get a real nice one in there, and you guys will be able to find people to play with just all the time. So make sure you get my link to Discord in the description below. Come follow me on Twitch, all of that. And yeah, I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. We'll see you guys in the next one.